I think that this is one of the most difficult things to do for a lot of filmmakers, and that is to kill your babies. Let's take it from the top. What does it mean to kill your babies in filmmaking? Think of all the work that you've done, every beautiful frame that you've captured, and you've put them on the timeline, and now they're looking all gorgeously spread out. Well, some of those things are gonna have to go. More than often, you need to cut down over 50% of all those beautiful frames because they wouldn't make it into the edit. Now, this thing is one of the most required but difficult things to do. And I think a lot of this comes from the fact that we sometimes attach emotions to the videos that we create. So sometimes it works for you and you're like, oh my God, all the work that we put into this thing, it looks so good. But there's a very, very specific question that you need to ask. Does this move the story forward? Now, before we answer that question, we need to answer the question, why should you learn to kill your babies? I'm going to be using myself and one of the newest projects that I'm working on, a documentary project. If you'd like to learn more about that, please leave me a comments below. This is literally a documentary about someone who is doing an incredible, exceptional work, who comes from nothing, still for the most part has nothing, but is doing incredible work trying to send the very little that he has to other people, and the struggle of not being able to do enough for all of those people. Now, this story is super close to my heart. It is dear to me and all of those things, but the footage ran for a total of about 2 hours. When I did my first cut down, my first just putting everything on the timeline and taking out all the fluff and everything and I'm left with about 45 minutes. But the true question is, can I tell that story in 10 to 15 minutes? Probably, but that's the most difficult part. Now, one of the things that killing your babies helps you to do is to be able to be more explicit and concise. A lot of times we assume that the audience needs to be fed all the information, which is not always true in the psychology of editing. Sometimes you want to leave the audience because they can figure things out for themselves. And the moment they start to feel like, okay, there's too much information here, people start to tune off, people start to leave the room. I liken this to a case of, if I need something from someone, right? Most times you just want to go straight to the point, or at least take the shortest route possible. Not killing your babies in filmmaking is the same as just blabbing and beating around the bush before you get to the actual thing. The thing is, you don't have the luxury of people waiting to be able to follow you on that journey of going around the bush. They really just want to get to the point. And a huge portion of that, in my opinion, I think just comes down to the fact that we as a people have just gotten used to consuming content really fast. Social media, the reels, and all this short form content, they just don't give you the incentive to want to relax and enjoy something that is more long form. So is this sort of like a compromise of long form content just for the gratification of like short form satisfaction? Maybe, I do not know. But if you want to retain your audience, if you want them to watch your videos, you need to make them as explicit as possible. And I think YouTube is a great example of that. The crux of it is your film has to say something and say it as explicit and as concise as possible. And that's what killing your babies will do for your film. It's very difficult, I'm not gonna lie, but you have to do it. The last reason why I think that you need to learn how to kill your babies is that it needs to fit into the medium of distribution that you want to use it for. If you are making a film for a festival, for example, unless you have a character that is a celebrity, or you have a really, really groundbreaking story, nobody's gonna sit through 30 minutes, over 30 minutes, or over 60 minutes of documentary about a story that they know nothing about the person or the character or things like that. There's just no incentive for them to want to see through that. Plus, if I'm a festival curator, I would rather show 4 or 5 movies means that I've included more people as opposed to running one 50-minute documentary that's just from one person. So I think that based off of that, you need to start thinking of how to make your film more explicit to be able to get them into the distribution format that you want to do. And even YouTube is the same. Maybe a talking head segment is about 20 minutes and you have to cut that down to about 8 minutes and remove all the fluffs of the arms and everything, just because you want it to be as explicit and as concise as possible. And if you think of the commercial world as well, this also applies, because in the commercial world, you see, we spend all these days working on this project and doing this, all for a 30-second spot or 60-second spot. Think about it. Look at the Super Bowl. You only get 1 minute or less to be able to air your ad. Now, it is your responsibility to cut down and kill your babies to the most important thing that you want the audience to see. I'm not saying that this is the most efficient way, or like this is the best way for filmmaking in general, but I'm just saying that it is the way things work, and it's something that you need to know how to do. And the reason why I feel like that is that ultimately this will make you a better filmmaker for the thing, because now you have to approach the edit from a non-emotional, non-attached standpoint, and it really helps you to see what is good for the story, because now you're not focused on the shot or the direction of the film or the cinematography of the film. You're focused on the direction of the story, like what exactly is the objective of this film. And I want to be able to remove myself from all the technical and all the creative side and approach this from a very holistic and strategic point. So it generally makes you a better filmmaker, because you're able to sift through all the noise and just get right to the point of it. Think about documentaries especially. People spend weeks and months filming and gathering countless hours of documentaries of films, countless hours of videos and all of these things, and you have to bring that back into the edit and compress that into something that makes sense in 10 to 15 minutes, maybe under 60 minutes, just to be able to make something that is cohesive, flows together, and works as a story. And I think ultimately, if you have that skill, if you're able to do that, I feel like it'll open more doors for you, because that knowledge of knowing how to edit is going to be very, very valuable for you in this industry. And I hope that you find that useful, because even for me, this is something that I will be doing on my next film, is killing those babies. And the struggle is basically just, how do I tell the story in a way that feels true to what I heard on that day, but still make it into a format or into something that is more cohesive, that the audience is not bored and just scrolling on their phone, or they don't want to watch it anymore. And this is like the dilemma of what this does for you, is in killing your babies, you literally have to chop away parts of the film that you think is going to be good, but on the more strategic side of things, maybe they do not necessarily progress the film forward, or they're not as important as some of the other things. So it's basically just a case of, I'm taking everything that's nice, I'm taking everything that's important, and taking everything that I want, and I'm only going to be choosing what is the most important thing. It's difficult, people. It is extremely difficult to kill your babies. Yeah.